We meet Lully, who claims to be the happiest medical student ever. She tells us her life is going amazingly well, better than ever. Since she was young, she dreamed of becoming a doctor. Despite doubts from others, she proved them wrong. Tomorrow, medical school ends and a new phase begins. She's also dating Diego, another medical student. Unlike Lully, Diego is unsure about his future. He tries to talk to Lully about quitting med school, but she's self-absorbed and doesn't take him seriously. Diego attempts to have a serious conversation with Lully, but she only focuses on herself. They party with other med students, but when Diego tries to discuss quitting med school again, Lully ignores him or changes the subject. Lully only seems to care about herself until she sees Diego flirting with another woman, Paula, a resident doctor. This catches Lully's attention, and she accuses Diego of liking Paula and suggests he quits being a doctor too. Diego calls her out for being selfish when he discovers she ordered food with prawns, to which he's allergic. Despite this, Lully blames Diego for not telling her about his allergy, even though he did. Lully tries to divert the conversation to their upcoming anniversary plans, but Diego has had enough. He tells her this is the final straw, and they're done. The next morning, Lully is rushed by her mother for her first day as a doctor's resident. She rushes through her morning routine, showing her self-centered nature. She even ignores her friend Julio, who's pushing his broken car, as she rushes past him. Let's flash back to when Lully was young, telling her teacher how badly she wanted to become a doctor. Even though a girl behind her was mean about her not having a dad, Lully stayed determined. It seems like her late father's memory is motivating her to pursue medicine, just to make him proud. Now she's at work, on her first day as a real doctor, and things are already awkward. Diego's there, and she catches him flirting with the attractive Dr. Paula who's on residency duty. Lully questions Diego about why he even bothered to show up, considering he was thinking about quitting. He responds that he changed his mind. This brings up the movie's theme, listening. Paula emphasizes to the group that they can't be good surgeons if they don't listen to their patients, which might be tough for Lully. And sure enough, Lully's first patient of the day suffers because she doesn't listen and tries to handle everything herself. Paula quickly corrects her in front of everyone, leaving Lully feeling ashamed. But a chance for redemption comes in the form of a subplot involving a patient named Oscar. He's really sick in bed, probably from a stroke affecting his cerebellum. They need to do an MRI to confirm. Guess who's in charge of it? Lully and Diego, the dream team. Later, as they're setting up Oscar for the MRI, he wishes his son was there, but they're not on good terms. Oscar's intuition about mentioning his son seems spot on, especially since Lully seems distracted, ignoring Diego. They argue like kids until the medical equipment starts acting up. The technician advises them to wait, but of course, Lully doesn't listen. She sees Oscar moving in the machine and rushes to help, with Diego following. But suddenly, there's a surge of power, an explosion, and both doctors are thrown back. Luckily, Lully wakes up in a medical bay later, seemingly unharmed. This time, Lully's not focused on herself. She's worried about Diego. Well, until she spots him with Paula. Even though Paula's just doing her job as a doctor, Lully starts to suspect something fishy between them. But that's not all. Her friend Vanessa's there too, and Lully starts to feel like she can hear Vanessa's thoughts, especially about Diego and Paula. That's when Lully starts to lose it. She bolts out of the hospital in a panic, accidentally eavesdropping on everyone's thoughts on her way out. This is when we figure out how her new mind-reading thing works. She has to touch people to hear their thoughts. It all gets overwhelming, especially on the bus where she bumps into everyone and hears snippets of their thoughts. stress levels are skyrocketing. Needing a breather, Lully heads to her friend Julio's volleyball practice. Julio's surprisingly good at volleyball, and the coach wants to put him in a big game next week. But Julio freaks out, even faking a leg injury to avoid playing. The coach insists he'll play, much to Julio's dismay. After the game, Lully chats with Julio, checking out his injury. She reads his mind and discovers he's faking it out of fear. She calls him out, but ends up breaking down herself, overwhelmed by her own issues. Classic Lully. Back at home, Lully's mom fusses over her about the day's drama. Lully hugs her, but reads her mind, realizing her mom's just worried about her love life, fearing Lully's coldness pushes people away. So, naturally, Lully pushes her mom away, hating her newfound mind-reading ability. In her room, Lully ponders why she and Julio aren't dating anymore. Julio tries to explain that they're just not compatible. But in a moment of hand-holding, Lully's mind-reading ability accidentally reveals Julio's homosexuality. She confronts him, he gets upset, and then she unveils her new power. Lully makes Julio promise to keep it a secret, but he spills the beans in no time. Vanessa barges in soon after, and when she demands to know what's happening, Julio spills the beans that Lully can read minds, and then Lully reveals Julio's secret. They argue briefly before deciding to talk in private somewhere quieter. Now the trio can't believe what's unfolded. Strangely, Vanessa seems more intrigued by Julio's homosexuality than Lully's mind-reading ability. But Julio isn't keen on discussing it. Instead, he's concerned about what to do with Lully's new power. Well, Lully too. She doesn't want this ability. But luckily, Vanessa talks some sense into him, suggesting that this power could help Lully figure out Diego's true feelings and if he's involved with Paula. It's a bit morally ambiguous, but still a solid plan. The following day, the two girls locate Diego. They see him with his father talking to Paula, which heightens Lully's suspicion that they're having an affair. But before they can delve into this further, Diego notices Lully and calls her over. She tries to read his mind right away but can't for some reason. Even weirder is that Diego acts like they never broke up. Diego expresses happiness about their relationship and their upcoming anniversary. It's all very strange, but everything becomes clear when Paula summons Lully to her office and explains that Diego has temporary amnesia and can't remember anything from the previous day, including the breakup. Seeing the silver lining, Lully decides to make the best of the situation. It gets even better when she reads Paula's mind and learns that Paula sees Diego as a son and nothing more. Finally, Lully starts to see the benefits of her powers, despite the significant invasion of privacy. Lully excitedly shares everything with Vanessa, who's equally thrilled, but she has a small favor to ask. Since Lully can read minds, Vanessa wants her to find out if one of the other doctors, Ricardo, likes her or if it's Elena. However, Lully puts her foot down here. If she's going to invade people's privacy and read their minds, it's only going to be for her benefit, not her friends. That's morally ethical. But now that Lully's embracing her powers, she realizes they could actually be useful in her job, like saving lives. Next comes the classic scene where Lully and the other doctors examine patients, trying to figure out what's wrong. It's tough because patients often lie to their doctors, or at least they try, even though they're open about it to others. Lully reads their minds to uncover the truth. She then uses that power to diagnose the patients and prove she's the smartest, most capable doctor. Paula is impressed and points out the real reason behind Lully's success. Despite her achievements, Lully still feels guilty and overwhelmed by her mind-reading ability. She vents to Vanessa, who suggests they visit a Romanian gypsy palm reader. As expected, Lully doesn't take this seriously, and eventually, she gets so annoyed that she just spills the beans about her power to the gypsy, who completely freaks out. The gypsy then admits that the whole palm reading gig is just a scam to make money, but if she collaborates with Lully, they can both become rich. Lolly and her friends quickly leave the gypsy's place. Later that night, the gang decides to go out and celebrate their hard day's work. For Vanessa, this means trying to flirt with her crush Ricardo. Unfortunately, Elena is already chatting with him, and it takes Vanessa interrupting their conversation for Elena to leave. Finally, Vanessa gets some alone time with Ricardo, or so she thinks, when suddenly Julio shows up out of nowhere. Vanessa gets even more frustrated because she just wanted to be with Ricardo. But she doesn't realize that Ricardo is actually interested in Julio, and Julio feels the same way. So when Julio offers to get him drinks, Ricardo insists on helping. I have a feeling this Vanessa-Ricardo love story isn't going to happen. Maybe Vanessa's starting to feel it too because she soon finds herself talking to Elena, the last person she wants to talk to, and Elena isn't too impressed with Vanessa either. At least they're being honest. This honesty continues when Elena reveals that Vanessa won't have to worry about her much longer because she's moving to Portugal with her parents. And then, in a surprising but selfless move, Vanessa offers Elena a place to stay in her apartment. Vanessa seems to be growing as a person, but on the other hand, Lily is still struggling in that department of her life. Despite the fact that she and Diego seem to be doing really well, she can't get over the fact that she's still lying to him about their relationship status. Even worse, Diego has changed his mind and now wants to be a doctor more than ever, and he wants to do it with Lolly by his side. Now she's really starting to wonder if she should tell him the truth, but she goes ahead and sets aside that concern for the night so they can have some passionate intimacy. All of this seems to have really pleased Lily. By the time morning comes, she's even more deeply in love with Diego than before. It's a pity that it can't last, as Diego's father soon arrives home and finds the two in bed together. But that's just the beginning. They all gather for breakfast, and soon Diego and his father are in a heated discussion about Diego's future. And that conversation quickly turns into an argument because Diego wants to work as a doctor at a public hospital, but his dad wants him to pursue private practice. So they're arguing and swearing, and Diego's father storms off in anger. The next day, Vanessa practically demands that Lily read Ricardo's mind already and find out if he's truly interested in her. She finally gives in and agrees. And a bit later, they all gather to check on Julio's injury at the lake. As they do this, Ricardo keeps talking endlessly about Julio. Vanessa watches Ricardo with admiration. But when Lily reads his mind, well, she doesn't disclose what she discovers. But I think everyone can guess who Ricardo's truly interested in, and it's not Vanessa. Before Lily can reveal this, Diego rushes in and informs Lolly that their patient Oscar is deteriorating and might not make it. All Oscar desires before he passes away is to see his son, but he knows his son won't come. However, he must. And this becomes even more crucial when it's revealed that surgery could save Oscar, but Oscar won't consent to it, at least not without his son. Diego and Lully then go to visit the son. The son is unsure about visiting his father. He says his father, being an alcoholic, never showed him love and ignored him throughout his childhood, drowning himself in alcohol. Then Diego steps in, sharing that his own relationship with his father is quite similar. He explains that his father always prioritized work over him and didn't express his affection. But that doesn't mean his father doesn't love him. Diego believes his father loves him, even if he doesn't show it, just like Oscar loves his son. It's a heartwarming speech, a touching moment that has the desired impact. The son agrees to visit Oscar, approves the surgery, which turns out successful, saving Oscar's life. Later that evening, the team gathers to watch Julio play volleyball. Julio is anxious about playing, but his leg is fine, and surprisingly, he plays exceptionally well. He blocks shot after shot, contributing to the team's victory. His friends, including Ricardo, cheer him on, and they couldn't be happier. After the game, Vanessa asks Lully about Ricardo. She points out that Ricardo and Julio seem to be flirting nearby. It's so obvious that Lully doesn't need to say anything, and finally, Vanessa realizes she's been mistaken all along. At least she's happy for him. But good times don't last forever. The next day, Lully and Diego are visiting Oscar when Diego suddenly remembers that he and Lully are no longer together, and she's been deceiving him. Naturally, he's upset about it. However, his resentment is short-lived because next thing we know, Diego collapses. They call for help and rush him to the ER. In a moment of clarity, Lully finally pays attention to Diego, or rather, she recalls what he said earlier when she couldn't read minds. She remembers Diego mentioning a sore leg after his trip, and then he complained about feeling short of breath. Quickly, she tells Paula that it's probably an embolism in his leg, explaining why, and Paula is glad to hear her out. Thank goodness Lully started to listen somewhere, or things wouldn't have gone well for Diego. But it doesn't stop there. As Diego gets ready for surgery, Lully anxiously holds his hand and watches over him. Suddenly, Diego gets shocked with the defibrillator. The shock travels through his body and even hits Lully, who falls back but thankfully isn't hurt. In that moment, she's too concerned about Diego to think about the consequences. The surgery turns out fine. Diego is okay, even better than before. His distant father rushes to the ER when he hears what happened to his son. Diego is surprised, but his father assures him that he came because he loves him, no matter what. Facing a life-and-death situation makes Diego realize his love for Lully even more. Paula credits Lully for saving Diego, and he forgives her. They share a kiss by the bedside, and it feels like everything will be okay. 2 years later, we see Diego, Lully, and their friends graduating. They're still together, deeply in love. Diego pursued his dream of becoming a surgeon, while Lully chose a different path. Her ability to read minds made her realize her passion for helping people, so she became a personal physician. Turn on alerts, like, and subscribe for more videos similar to this one. Thank you for watching.